If you've ever looked up at a power line, you've probably seen this. A tiny bird, just sitting there, completely relaxed. Now imagine replacing that bird with yourself. You'd probably never make it back down. So why does the bird get a free pass? Timmy noticed it on a morning walk. A little sparrow landed on the wire above him. It chirped, shuffled a few steps, started cleaning its feathers, like the wire wasn't carrying thousands of volts. Timmy looked at the bird, then at the power line, then back at the bird. That can't be right. Power lines aren't supposed to be forgiving. They're built to move enormous amounts of electricity across cities. Touch the wrong one, and the outcome can be catastrophic. Yet this bird looked like it was sitting on a park bench. The obvious explanation is that birds must have evolved some kind of protection. Rubber feet, special feathers, something humans don't have. That would make sense. Except, none of it is true. Birds aren't immune to electricity. In fact, thousands of birds are electrocuted every year. Not by accident. Not once in a while. Every single year. So the real mystery isn't why birds survive. It's why this bird survived. Because somewhere out there, another bird didn't. And that changes the question completely. Imagine two birds landing on two different power poles. One flies away a few minutes later, the other never leaves. Same sky, same electricity, completely different ending. Why? Timmy started looking for clues. The first one came from an animal you probably weren't expecting. Squirrels. If you've ever watched one run across power lines, they almost look fearless. They sprint across wires, leap between poles, climb over transformers. And most of the time, they're perfectly fine, but not always. Every year, squirrels accidentally knock out power to entire neighborhoods. Some don't survive. That didn't make any sense either. If birds were supposedly immune, why weren't squirrels? Timmy kept digging. Then he found something even stranger. The birds most likely to die around power lines are some of the biggest birds on Earth. Eagles, hawks, owls. At first, that sounds backwards. Wouldn't being bigger make you safer? Instead, it makes them more vulnerable. How could being larger possibly make electricity more dangerous? Now the clues were piling up. Small birds often survive. Large birds are at greater risk. Squirrels can cause blackouts. There had to be one invisible rule connecting all of them. Timmy just hadn't found it yet. Then he stumbled across something that made him stop. Power companies spend millions of dollars every year because of birds. Seriously, not to scare them away, to protect them. They install plastic covers over electrical equipment. They redesign parts of power poles. Some even build special platforms for birds to land on. That sounds ridiculous. Why would an electric company spend that kind of money on birds? Unless the birds weren't just in danger. Maybe they were dangerous too. Timmy couldn't stop thinking about that. Electric companies don't spend millions of dollars unless something is costing them even more. So what was actually happening? It turns out, the bird sitting quietly on the wire isn't the problem. It's the bird that lands 1 inch to the left. Picture an eagle. Its wings can stretch over 2 meters. When it lands, it's not just touching a wire anymore. A wing might brush another wire. A feather might touch a metal bracket. One foot might land on a grounded piece of equipment. Suddenly, everything changes. Not because the eagle is weak, because it accidentally became a bridge. And electricity loves bridges, not because it wants to kill, because it finally has somewhere new to go. That same invisible rule explains the squirrels. Watch a squirrel for 5 minutes. It never sits still. It climbs. It jumps. It grabs wires. It grabs poles. It squeezes between transformers. It's constantly touching different parts of the electrical system. Most of the time, nothing happens, but one unlucky step, one paw touching 2 different points, and the squirrel becomes part of the circuit. That's all it takes. One tiny mistake. The exact same thing can happen to a bird. Which is why those plastic covers and bird guards suddenly make perfect sense. They aren't trying to stop birds from landing. They're trying to stop birds from becoming bridges. Now there was only one clue left. Rain. If you've ever heard that water conducts electricity, this should bother you. Shouldn't every bird sitting in the rain be in danger? It sounds like it should. But think back to everything Timmy had learned. The danger was never simply touching electricity. The danger was giving electricity a better path. A wet bird sitting on one wire is still usually just a wet bird sitting on one wire. Rain can make certain situations more dangerous, but by itself, it doesn't suddenly create the missing path, which means the answer was never about feathers, or rubber feet, or being lightweight. Those were all distractions. The answer had been sitting in front of Timmy the entire time. The bird wasn't surviving because electricity couldn't go through it. It was surviving because electricity didn't need to. The wire was already the easiest route. Why leave it? Why take a detour through a tiny bird, only to end up back on the same wire? There was no reason, and electricity always takes the easier option. Suddenly, every clue fit together. The sparrow survived because both feet were on the same wire. The eagle was at greater risk because its body could reach two different points. The squirrel got into trouble because it was constantly connecting different pieces of equipment. Power companies spent millions preventing animals from completing those connections. And humans are different for one simple reason. We're almost never floating in the air. We're standing on the ground. The moment a person touches a live wire while connected to the earth, they can become the path electricity was looking for all along. The little bird never broke the laws of physics. It survived because it obeyed them. The next time you look up and see a bird sitting on a power line, you'll know you're not looking at an animal with some secret superpower. You're looking at a tiny creature following an invisible rule that most people never notice. And once you see that rule, you'll start seeing it everywhere. If this made you think of something you've always wondered about, drop it in the comments. Timmy's always looking for the next question. Subscribe so you don't miss when he finds the answer.